Evie and I'm in Year 5.
And I'm Teddy and I'm also in Year 5.
And we're going to tell you about the history of our school, Bishop Monkton Primary School. We have a team of reporters to help us.
I'm Charlotte and I'm in Year 5.
I'm Becca and I'm in Year 6.
I'm Rafe and I'm also in Year 5.
I'm Lewis and I'm in Year 4.
The philosophy for me is that everybody is welcome at our school and that we are a school that includes everybody, whatever beliefs, whatever difficulties, or, bright, capable children, sporty children, artistic children, all are welcome here. And that's my philosophy. And for me, then, it means that the school feels like a big family.
It's quite a small school, which I think is really nice because you get to know everyone, and everybody's really nice, and there's never anything mean happening or anything. And all the teachers are really good, and the teaching is very good as well.
My favourite thing is probably the lessons. The only lesson I'm keen on is maths. I quite like literacy and science. That we get to run around, and we also get to play nice, and we get to play outside.
We'll also learn how the grown-ups of Bishop Monkton had a special place for learning things.
But first, let's find out how children were taught starting over 200 years ago and right up to the present day.
Is the history of the school important?
I think it's really important because we're founded as a Church of England school, and it was a school that was built on the origins of supporting children from poor backgrounds. So at the time, much wealthier children could afford to have a private education, but poor children from disadvantaged backgrounds didn't have the capacity to go to school and be educated. So for me, it's fundamental that our ethos still carries that out. Our history and the legacy that we were set up on is still hopefully acted out today, that we're still here for all sorts of children, vulnerable, disadvantaged, rich, poor, all together.
The school has not always been in this building, and it is not the only school that has ever been in the village.
We've discovered that there were other schools in Bishop Monkton a long, long time ago where children were taught very differently from the way that we are taught today.
Dame schools were schools, as its name suggests, generally run by women. They were in effect private enterprise. A woman would do a class for perhaps a dozen local children, usually poor children. The children of the better off were educated at home, perhaps by a governess or by another member of the family, in the very basics, just reading and writing.
Dame schools were really what we would think of as preschooling, or even looking after children when their mothers were away at work. So in theory, they did a bit of education. In practice, the dames were not trained teachers in any way, but they were looking after small children.
They haven't generally had a good press. They're usually regarded as very poorly taught and so on, but not much more than childminding, really. Literacy levels were higher in the past than we sometimes think. We tend to think that nobody could read or write, but in actual fact, there were quite high levels of literacy. So they were probably rather better than history has sometimes led us to believe. In the early 19th century, two societies were established, firstly by the Anglicans to promote schools for the working classes, called national schools. It's a national society for promoting the education of the poor in the principles of the established church. Rather a mouthful, but that's the full society. And that's why so many of these schools are called national schools. The Anglicans are raising money by all usual kind of fundraising methods, but the National Society also provided money towards the building of schools. So that's why you find, like Bishop Monkton, these schools are called national schools. In 1833, to give the exact date, the government provided grants towards the building and to an extent the running of schools, and this gradually developed over the years.
This is where Bishop Monkton School started in 1849. When you look at it, it is difficult to tell whether it was a school or not. Well, it was, and children came to learn here for over 100 years.
It's now a house for private use, and the owners, Paul and Sarah, have invited our cameras in to see what it was like in the early years.
The school could be quite a grim building. The rooms were warmed by a single stove or open fire. The walls of the Victorian schoolroom were quite bare, except perhaps for an embroidered text.
Boys were caned across their bottoms and girls across their hands and bare legs.
Pupils weren't learning quickly enough and had to stand on a stool at the back of the class wearing an arm-shaped band with dunce written on it.
And so what would you have was a large open classroom with a separate classroom for the littlies, and all 50 of the children, other than the babies, would be in the big classroom, and they would be taught. Well, what would they be taught? They would be taught basic 3 R's. The younger children would be sitting in the classroom. The older children, the 10 to 11-year-olds, they would be teaching the little ones, and the headmaster would be supervising the older ones.
There are two essential attitudes. One is it's a bad thing. It will give them ideas above their station. All the poor are going to do, the girls are going to be servants and then get married. In rural areas, the boys are going to work on the farm, or possibly in local industries, corn milling and what have you. And the education, they didn't need it, basically, or it would make them uppity. The other view, and the one which eventually prevailed, was that the right kind of education was what was needed. Education which would prepare children for their station in life. You have to remember that it's much later that the idea develops that children are going to develop to make them better individuals, that learning is good for its own sake.
Some of Ada's friends had to walk 3 miles to school. There was no transport in those days. Also, there were no school dinners and children just brought some jam and bread. When anyone was naughty, the stick would come hurling at them. Ada said it didn't matter where it hit us. Sometimes they would make us stay in and write lines. Some days she had to stay at home to wash, bake, and miss school.
Attendance is a big issue, and it does come across strikingly in the logbooks for all kinds of reasons. One reason is illness. There's a lot of illness in schools in the past, sometimes closed for days or weeks at a time because of an epidemic of measles or scarlet fever. The second reason for absence is many parents were reluctant to send them. In rural areas, the children were needed at harvest time, but more generally needed to help around the home. And the third thing is the weather. In these days of global warming, we tend to lose sight of it, but in the 19th century, the weather was frequently so bad, it was impossible for children to come to school.
There are still people alive who can remember going to the school when it was in this building. Some were even here 80 years ago during the Second World War.
We've invited 4 people who came here as pupils to come back inside the building for the first time in many years.
Now this room, this is where the kid, so this is all part of the same room, isn't it? Do you think? They had a sink in here, didn't they? And I think this is where we queued up for cod liver oil. In here, yes. Well, we were given cauliflower oil for health reasons, and we had it on a yellow spoon. Well, everybody used the same spoon, and it was horrible, but we had to have it.
What was it like being at school during the war?
Well, we didn't have much bother, but we had gas masks, and because I was only 4 or 5, I got a Mickey Mouse gas mask, which I didn't really like, but the older children got black gas masks. But my husband remembers having lessons in them, and he said they all steamed up, yeah, when you were trying to learn, yeah.
We had a boy, and he kept losing his temper, and this particular day, he went absolutely crackers. And he was kicking and scratching. He scratched Mrs. Walters, all her arms were scratched, and she kicked her on the legs. So she put him in the Wendy house. And they were kicking and carry on in there, so she got a jug of water, threw it over the top. Then do you know what he said?
No.
You'll have to wash my clothes now.
No. Well, your toilet block was there, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, there was 4 toilets, the earthen toilets, and the wall must come across here, did you think, Claire?
I think it did a dividing
Yeah, and there was a door halfway,
Yes.
a gap halfway
gap,
up, yes, that we went through. And I don't remember, yeah. We didn't have much space, did we? but what you didn't have, we didn't know about, did we? No.
What did the school teach you?
Good manners, and to concentrate on our work, and also to be kind to other people. And that's when we went to visit people in the village who were on their own, and took them presents and things, and just generally befriended them. But we did try and be nice to people, and be nice to our school friends as well. Yeah. Looked out for each other.
Now, one thing that might surprise you is that when we were about 9 or 10 years old, 4 of us were allowed to go for a cross-country run on our own, unaccompanied, and we went out of the village, up Mains Lane, into Burton Leonard, and then round back to the school. And the head teacher allowed that, and was quite surprised how quick we were in doing that.
Could you tell us about what happened before lunch?
Yes, we went across the road. It was when Miss Willis was here. I only had her for about a year, if that. And she used to have run up the road, far side, over the bridge, run up to Ings Lane at the top wall, then run back down again.
Did you find it tiring?
Not really. We were young then. Yeah. And then we used to come back in and have lunch.
When I was one of the older boys, I was given quite a lot of responsibility in the school. When the head teacher couldn't look after she had to go out, say. So she would say, Howard, I want you to look after the class for a few minutes, which is quite unusual now. You wouldn't get that happen now, I don't think. But because we were trusted and had that responsibility, we reacted to it. We took it on.
After the Second World War, the people decided that the school wasn't big enough anymore, so they went on a search to try and find a new place to build the new school.
Eventually it was agreed that the new school should be close to the old school, just up the road in fact. But it was until 1970 when they found money for the new school to be built.
In the 1971 and the 2000s, the old school was still used until they added the extension bit to the new school, which then the old school was then converted into a house.
She was a force to be reckoned with. You definitely knew where you stood with Miss Willis, and she was a lovely person, but she was quite strict.
Miss Willis, as we call her. Miss Willis was the head teacher when all my 3 children were here. She was a big lady, and this is not rude, but everybody thought of her as a mother hen. And she got all her little chicks around her. You can always remember when Miss Willis came into the hall and the people would be chattering, and Miss Willis just had to look at somebody and there was absolute silence. She was a very, very special lady, very special lady.
She was very kindly, actually, very kindly. My elder daughter has Down syndrome and was very tiny when she came to school. And Miss Willis always sort of nurtured her. So there would be this huge lady and this little tiny girl. I came round to Miss Willis and just said to her, would you consider taking Kate into Bishop Monkton School? And she said, oh yes, we'll give it a go. We'll see how it works. There was another child who lived on Melrose Road and he came too. So the two of them had their own teacher for every morning. And this was completely unheard of, really, in educational circles, that children with a learning disability went to a normal school.
Thank you very much for coming along tonight. We've got this seat for Miss Willis. For 35 years, you've been the head teacher. You've been the head teacher of this school. And many, many children have passed before you, and in some cases, their children too.
So, what was it like at Miss Willis's leaving do?
Well, it was very nice, actually. It was really very, very nice. Like, some of the old pupils came and said something, or gave us some presents. And it was very emotional in a way, really, you know, because she'd been here 35 years. And she would feel, you know, because she really liked being here.
One of the most important things about the school is the food. Nowadays, children can bring their own lunch or have school dinners.
100 years ago, there were no school dinners. Children either went home for their lunch or they brought food in to eat.
If you're looking at school meals, particularly in poor areas, teachers were finding that the children were coming to school having had no breakfast and consequently were unable to concentrate. So some schools did start to provide breakfast for the children. It wasn't until the 1944 Education Act that more generally school meals and more generally the milk and the orange juice that some of us will remember were provided for school children in an effort to improve the general health of school children. But one thing I haven't mentioned that is worth stressing is people were very conscious of the cost of things. And anything which was likely to put an extra charge on the ratepayers, like providing free school meals, did meet with opposition. That and a more general principle that it wasn't the job of government to feed children, that was the job of parents.
There used to be 8 of us on a table with one adult, and then we used to, the adult teacher used to give you the food. It used to be 8 on a table, so it was portioned out into 8. But yes, we used to get meat and veg and nice puddings.
Is the food better now?
Well, it's more balanced now than it was then. It was more like rice puddings and sago puddings and all stuff like that, where now it's all cakes and fruit and yoghurt.
Well, Miss Willis always had a table across there where the piano is, just in that corner in there, because there was a big window there. It was a bit different than what it was. And if they were a little bit naughty, or they were a little bit wouldn't like the food, she always had them on her table. And she sometimes ended up with 10 or 12 on her table, seriously. And she always used to get them, encourage them to eat. And not to be so, they weren't really naughty in them days, you know. She always had a dinner with the children, Miss Willis. I will say that, I always had the children. And if I was a bit late getting it out, she used to have them doing the times table. She always had them doing the times table just to keep me here. Yeah. It was lovely, actually. Yes, yeah.
This might be a bit of a surprise, but there's another building in the village where education used to take place, but the education was to adults, not children.
It's a mechanics institution, and as you can see above the door, it was opened in 1859. This was a place for adults to learn, because many of them had not had the chance to go to school as children.
Do you like your house? Yes. What's your favourite part about it?
I like how the history
history is, and I like the history about it, and it's good to know that there's a lot of history about it.
The Mechanics Institutes grew out of the Industrial Revolution, and there was a need recognised by those who were running the new businesses for an educated workforce, and decided that it would be desirable for the artisan class, that is to say the class which is below the bosses and above the labourers, a level of education. They grew like crazy in the northeast.
I have something interesting up the ladder that some houses don't have. Do you want to see it? Okay, let's go up. This side's the clock, and this side's the bell mechanism. This shows you which time it is, and this winds it all up like that. The old instructions were still here, so we checked them out, and we're just working on it for ages, and eventually it came to life.
It remained a popular centre because it did meet the Mechanics Institute ethos of providing lectures and classes, places for people to meet, a social environment, so you could go and listen to read the newspapers. And of course, because there was no village hall in those days, if the village was going to have a party, that was the place that you would do it. The ladies of the village would provide the catering, and that was greatly successful.
Do you like living in a house with so much history?
We love living in a house with so much history. It's not just about the history and the old features that the house brings, but it's listening to villagers who've lived here for years, who used to come into the building when they were young. And it's lovely to bring people in who haven't seen it since it was converted into a house. So it's really special.
Can you describe what it's like inside?
It was basically an open hall, but there was a mezzanine at the far end, which will have 4 little steps going up, and there was no upper story then at all. And there was a big pool table in the middle where the men and the boys in the 1970s used to come to play pool. A youth club used to use it for a while, and they were up to your age, sort of up to 10 years old, the youth club. They used to meet in here and have meetings, and occasionally people would use it for a birthday party or for a meeting of some sort. But it wasn't very nice to come in to have a meeting because it was so cold and damp and dark.
The Mechanics Institute was our den, so to speak. We'd all gather here, we used to sit on the bridge, the lads would bring the cars up, put the latest music on. I think it was a Bat Out of Hell at the time. We were a nuisance. But we just used to meet, chatter, sit round the fire, play snooker. I think the lads used to try and teach some of us girls how to play snooker. We always used to call it the Mickey, so if we were going to congregate, we'd say, oh, meet you down the Mickey, meet you down the Mickey. And here's the funny thing, the phone box there was no phone of course, in the Mechanics Institute at all, but the phone box there, if we were all out and about, we'd always give our friends the phone box telephone number, which I think was 411. So we didn't have the 60 in the front of it then, it was 411. So somebody would always have to come out and answer the phone. Oh, it's for you, so-and-so, it's for you, so it became a bit of a joke, really, that was everybody's phone number.
Sad, really, because people weren't using it. A youth club used it for a while. Then I think the pool table went, and nobody really used it, so it was locked up, really. And it was very dusty and dirty and dark inside. So it was a bit sad. It was nice to see it converted into a house.
Meanwhile, back at school, quite a lot of things have changed since the 1980s. More children come to the school who live outside the village.
Children and parents are both more involved in deciding what happens in the school.
Well, first of all, we meet a lot more regularly. We meet each half term, so we have 6 full meetings a year. And instead of there being 4 or 5 people, we have, I think when we're all together, there are 12 of us. We sit in the hall, and it is not a chat as it used to be. It's very official. We've all got minutes that we've been given of previous meetings. We have what's called an agenda of all the items we have to go through. And instead of it being a half an hour chat with a cup of tea, it's probably 2 hours.
I actually used to do sewing with the children. So I used to bring my sewing machine in, and we also used to do sort of, I suppose, cross stitch. There's a material called binker that has holes in, so we started off doing that. And I had a group of about 6 children, and we would do probably about half a term with me, and then there were other parent helpers who came in, and then there was another group that did cooking, so making biscuits and things like that. There was another group that did mainly machine embroidery with Mrs. Minot. So I think there were about 6 or 7 of us who used to come in and do it.
My teacher, Mrs. Room, also taught Mum when she was at the school, and I have a very funny memory of sitting on the floor in the cloakroom trying to change into my outdoor shoes, and I was being really slow and everyone else was already outside, and Mrs. Room was stood at the door and she was there kind of waiting for me to come on, and she was like, "Hurry up, Emma, you're dilly-dallying just like your mother always used to do."
I got a good education, but I'll tell you what I didn't like.
What?
There was a lesson when I was at school, and it was called country dancing. And you had to go into the main hall and be paired up with a young man to dance with. Oh, and I didn't like that at all.
That sounds quite strange.
It was very, very strange. But it wasn't my favourite lesson. It wasn't country dancing.
What's it like having your granddaughter at school?
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? It's nice because I get to see her every day, so it's quite nice. I'm looking forward to watching you grow, aren't I? And the best bit about it as well is we sneak cuddles, don't we? We have sneaky cuddles and things, don't we, when we're at school? And it also means I can help her as well. So when I see her out of school, I can always find out what your day's been like, can't I? But it's very exciting. It's a new chapter of my life, so I'm looking forward to it massively.
What does it mean to you that 4 generations of your family came to this school?
It means a lot. It wasn't planned particularly. It just ended up back in the village where I'd been brought up, and then my family came along, and it meant a lot. They had a great education here, and everybody was so good.
What was the school like when you went here?
It was quite a similar vibe to how it is now, really. Similar style of teaching and learning. The physical building was quite different because all of that whole section over there, the whole extension at the back wasn't here. And the year 4, 5 and 6 classroom was actually in the old school at the front, which is where I remember going down to that bit.
Can you still remember the old school as well as the new one?
I definitely remember it because I have a vivid memory of having a day where the whole school had to dress up in like Victorian clothes, and we all went down there and the entire school was fitting in that building, and we pretended to have Victorian lessons during the day. And a vivid memory I have is the teachers taking a naughty student and pretending to cane them in front of the whole. Obviously it was all very, very much pretend, but I remember everyone taking it really seriously. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Everyone was like, "I'm being really good."
I really, really remember children always scaring me with spiders, because once children found out I don't like spiders, they used to just play tricks on me. They'd hide them under the table and put them on my head, and it's just been a big thing, is the spider. So the children have always reminded me of my dislike for spiders.
What did you enjoy most about the school?
I enjoyed the fact that I made lots of friends here, that are friends that I made for life from Bishop Monkton School. It was a very inclusive school, so there was pupils from all over with all different abilities came to the school. So it was a nice village school.
Who are your friends at school, Max?
Lewis, Big Frog. I thought it was Lewis.
Well, on their very first day, they all came out with great big smiles, which I think says 1,000 words. So, yeah, they've all made really good friends. They love their teachers, and yeah, they're learning really well. So I think that's all you could want as a parent, really.
They have such great friends. What a setting. And it's just a really nice, easygoing school as well. They like going to the church. They like that involvement in the village as well.
They want to go. I think that's the fundamental. I want to be at school. There's none of this sort of kicking and screaming to get out the door. Just a keenness to be there, keenness to be with their friends, keenness to be in the learning environment with the variety of options that are available here. So it's great.
I think it's just that community feel, and they feel loved. Of course, their colour is different, but they still feel at home. So to them, it's just the second home. Yeah, they love it here.
In 2000 and 2022, the school buried time capsules. Tell us why and what was in them.
Well, I think it comes back to history, doesn't it? So it's telling people in the future about that key moment in time. So 2022 time capsule had things like a COVID test in it, because we had just come out of COVID. Luckily, it was a negative one, so it wasn't a positive result. We had a COVID mask. We had a solar calculator, because maybe they will not be used in the future. We had a programme for the Platinum Jubilee. We had a Head Teachers Award and a School Council badge, a pencil. Perhaps pencils won't be used. Who knows? So it gives an insight to future educationists as to what's happening now.
Villages have changed so fundamentally since 1900. In 1900, a village like Bishop Monkton would have been dominated by agriculture, dominated by the children of agricultural labourers, with a certain amount of local industry. I'm thinking of corn milling, blacksmithing, things like that. So the school is catering for a working class clientele. Particularly since the Second World War, villages have been transformed from an agricultural community into a more particularly middle-class residential communities for a variety of reasons, which in turn have transformed the schools, just as the content of education has been transformed.
It's been 176 years since Bishop Monkton School opened, and a lot of things have changed during that time, but still a great place to go to school.
Maybe in another 176 years, someone will make a film about it. I wonder what will have changed by then.
This school is a big family, okay, where everybody belongs, and we all have our different quirks, our different personalities, our different interests, and together we're like a big family. And I like to think of it as the small village school, but with a big heart.